Hey, so wanted to talk about expert commentary link building today. For me, that's split into two approaches. So you've got the more reactive to journalist requests specifically. So as journalist requests come through, you react to those with a response. And then proactive expert commentary, where you're putting together a piece to then send out to a journalist. So let's have a look at a couple of platforms that we can use from the journalist request side, and then also how you can get started on the ideation side when it comes to the more proactive expert commentary style of link building. So first, let's take a look at what is probably my favorite platform for journalist requests, which is Quoted. So let's say, for example, we've got a travel client or you're in the travel space. So we can literally just filter initially by travel keyword. So, for example, here we can start to look for what are the biggest sort of authority publications that are contextual to our niche, or even if they're a little bit outside of it, but that transfer of authority is still huge. So, for example, here with Architectural Digest, you could probably argue it's a bit more focused around interiors and for that sort of niche and that type of client. But at the same time, it's a travel based request. So it's a household name. You know what the brand is, you know the publication. It's going to be a pretty decent transfer of authority, without even checking the DR and the traffic metrics. Obviously, we'd do that as well, but you know what I mean in terms of the size of the site that we're going after. So we have a quick look at who they're looking for in terms of the pitch. So if we're not aligned to it or the client isn't aligned to it in terms of they're not an expert specifically in that. So for example, there could be a broader travel expert, but if they're asking for something super specific, they're just not going to use it. You can try to align it to the niche of the client as well. It just depends on the amount of replies that they've got. So what I like about Quoted is you can see who's replying to these pitches. So you can make that as executive decision on, do you want to go replying to something that's potentially a wasted response, or if it doesn't have a lot of replies, it might be worth trying to position it based on the niche of your client or the niche of your site if it's still somewhat aligned. But really the main thing here from a link building perspective is we want to get an idea of if we're sending this out, are we probably going to get a link back, or is it going to be like an unlinked brand mention? How can we start to work that out? So what I like to do is to go into a hrefs, we paste the domain in, go down to outgoing links, and then what we want to do is sort the anchor where the surrounding text contains something like expert or professional or quote, something like that that would suggest it's something from an external source, so from this type of journalist request. So for example here, when we sort it by the first scene, so we can see most recently, here's ones here: home expert, waste expert, sleep expert. They're all getting you've got these sponsored ones, so obviously affiliate links, but for the ones that aren't, you're getting these largely what are no follow links, either to sort of like social, or for example here, no follow one, CEO founder tree benders expert, and that's back to the homepage of the site. I don't necessarily worry about whether it's follow or no follow at this level. I think search engines are smart enough to realize, a link from Architectural Digest that's contextual to your niche is still a really powerful vote of confidence. And especially when we think of journalist request link building as sort of broader brand building, certainly with all the recent updates that are going on, I wouldn't necessarily worry about it. It's still a really powerful link. Obviously, follow is preferable, but it's still a powerful link to have either way. And we can do the same on journal request on Twitter, so we could just put hashtag journal request and then whatever the niche is that we're looking for. So if you don't want to pay for something like Quoted, you can do it this way as well. So you could go into the profiles of the journalist or the publisher, see who they write for, and then take this exact same approach where you can start to look at, okay, if I send them a response, is it likely they're going to be linking out before I even ask? Are they doing that as standard? So you can start to then prioritize ones. We're talking purely from a link building perspective here. So, with the broader sort of PR implications and getting sort of unlinked brand mentions will still be important. But if we're talking strictly links, it helps to do this extra step, just so you can start to get an idea on average, this is the type of publication that is going to be linking out to the expert commentary that they're looking for. And then let's take a look at proactive expert commentary link building. So for something like this, it is very similar to the journalist requests. It's just that especially if you're in like a bit of an awkward niche or one that's not overly common. So things like travel, fashion, interiors, those sorts of things, you can get a fair few requests on that. If you're in something quite specific, you might be waiting a while. So I'm still just going to use the travel example here, but this, you could use a template like this or a process like this to start to do some ideation around what those opportunities are for you from rather than just waiting for the journalist request, start to bring that proactive element to it. Now, there's exactly the same as the journalist request. There's no guarantee when something's going to go live, if something's going to land. So you can start to use this template. You can use this process for what are the opportunities that we're looking at, what are the type of things that are covered over and over and over again in the niche. And also just think of it this way, if it doesn't get picked up, you can always repurpose it or use that for something to publish on your site as well. So it's essentially just a longer style of journalist request that you're packaging up into a press release rather than responding via email or one of these journalist request platforms. So here we start to look at some initial ideas based on what is the similar types of coverage in the niche specific to expert commentary. So for example here, I'm a travel expert, perfect sort of thing we can start to look at. What are consistently the type of things that journalists and publishers are favouring when it comes to quoting experts to do with travel. So for example here, we start to see things around cheap flights and recommendations based on time of year. So something like that is perfect because not only is it cyclical, but if it doesn't get picked up, say in autumn, we can reposition what we already have then for Christmas or Halloween or whatever the time of year might be. And then ones around money saving as well. So we can see ones around tips on how to save money when booking a Christmas trip or just broader advice around money saving. So anything that you can tie to a certain time of year as well that makes it that little bit more topical for the journalist to pick up. It just gives you that sort of added element of, it's a little bit more bespoke and a little bit different to what might have been done before, or is at least highly contextual for the journalist to cover if they're, say, gearing up for Christmas content, so you know when to send something like that out. So for example here we find one, this one here, I'm a travel expert, EU rules for Brits. Really here then what we want to do is we can go into the profile of this journalist, so the email is right there. We take a look at other things that have been covered, so we can see any other types of expert commentary and start to look backwards through similar things that they publish and similar topics that they cover. And then also more specifically, we can start to do searches around have they covered anything else around travel expert. So if there's something that they specifically would be really likely to cover because they've covered it time and time again in the past, or have they just done a one-off and it's just worth putting them in that list. But whether there's something specific or not that they're likely to respond positively to. So for example here with a cleaning client, you can see this was literally just commentary around I think it was oven cleaning, and then that got syndicated. So the initial one was in the Express, linked to the homepage, and then that got picked up by Devon Live and Derby Telegraph. So that was really just sort of like not a huge amount of commentary. That was just a couple of hundred words, recommended products, and it was just that expert angle on a specific cleaning tip that the journalist was looking for. So yeah, it's really interesting the type of things that you can do on this. Certain niches it is a little bit, I wouldn't say easier, but there are definitely more opportunities than say ones that are a little bit more specific. But I think the best way to view it is the time that you spend on the content on the expert commentary side is never wasted, because you can either just reposition it, repurpose it, or publish it on your site as a bit of evergreen piece of content, or just some advice focused content. But my agency, we offer this sort of thing. We do it as a blend of journalist requests and proactive expert commentary. For some niches, you might do more journalist requests. For some, you might do more expert commentary pieces. It all depends on what the opportunities are. But if you wanted to get started on something like that, then I'll put the link in the description. But otherwise, you could absolutely do it for yourself and for your brand if you have the time. And it can get quite addictive when you start to land those features time and time again. But I think definitely if you have a little bit of budget, start out with something like Quoted. That's definitely one of the best sort of platforms for it, and you're not having to go between different emails. You can set up profiles, or even just starting out with hashtag journal requests, and just see how you get on with that. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. Any questions, just drop me a comment and I'll get back to you. And if I don't hear from you, I'll see you in the next video.